Good evening, everyone. It is Tuesday, May 27th, and I'm going to give my weekly update on my Florida family law case, as well as appellate court. But first, I want to talk a little bit more about my podcast that I just launched over this past weekend. Justice for the Serlick Children nonprofit podcast can now be found on all podcast platforms. So I can be found on Spotify, Apple, all the big ones.
YouTube podcast,
iHeartRadio, everything.
Amazon.
It's really cool. I'm using Podbean, so it kind of just RSS feeds it out, and I'm still kind of learning the ropes. But this podcast is going to be specifically about my family law case and the experiences that I'm going through, as well as educating people on what I am experiencing. And then my other podcast I'm going to be launching in the next month is going to be called Disrupt the Corrupt. And that's going to be where I'm going to be talking about everyone else's stories, as we are all getting louder by the day, telling our stories across the nation in regards to the family court corruption and CPS corruption across this nation that involves illegal activity, child trafficking, etc. So, Pete, why don't you start explaining to them? We are on DIN 190 now, and there's not too much that's been happening in my Florida Circuit 7 case, because everything is starting to transition to appellate court, which is awesome, so I'll discuss that next. But we have DIN 190 to 192 here. So we left off last week where I had filed a motion to contest my driver's license and motor vehicle registration suspension for the child support arrears that are being pulled from the April 27, 2022 Illinois order that is out of jurisdiction. So Florida had jurisdiction at the time this order was created in April 2022, and it has just been sitting there racking up this fictitious child support amount for 3 years straight now, over 3 years. So I am working my way through appellate court, and I will be filing two very important motions in the coming week that have everything to do with that UCC JEA jurisdiction violation that Illinois did in 2022. So these right here, these little amended documents, are basically all in regards to the motion to contest driver's license and my motion to stay child support while the appeal is pending. So kind of explain that to them.
Well, so
this right here is just one page document. Let me just get the rest out. 90. Grab that. Right. Sorry. So that's really just a copy of the contest.
Yeah. So this is basically a 7-page document that you filed, a motion to contest the suspension of your driver's license, which was the Florida Department of Revenue. It's one of their procedural enforcement actions. The Florida Department of Revenue is involved because in the state of Florida, they are tasked with handling child support collection in any case where the children receive any sort of state benefit, whether it's Medicaid, food stamps,
TANF,
stuff like that.
So my ex-husband must have applied for something in the state of Florida as far as like Medicaid or food stamps or whatever, and that triggered the state of Florida Department of Revenue to start going after me while I'm in this whole family court fiasco where they're trying to throw me in jail or take away my driver's license and my vehicle registration for this fraudulent order that Illinois signed in 2022. So that was just a copy that, for whatever reason, got filed into my docket. I'm thinking because at the bottom of this it says fax to the Department of Revenue attorney. I don't know, but it's in my docket a second time. And then the very next one, DIN 191. So this is different. This is new for me. I've never seen this before, probably because child support enforcement is now involved. But this is a notice of hearing before Child Support Enforcement Hearing Officer on June 17th at 12:30 p.m. will be heard with the child support hearing officer Neil Kaufman, and will conduct a hearing regarding motion to contest driver's license and motor vehicle registration suspension. I already know what I'm doing with this because there's some motions I'm going to be filing in the next week or two that are going to kind of squash this whole thing and put it dead in its tracks. So I now have an in-person hearing on June 17th at 12:30 p.m. specifically for the suspension of my driver's license.
And this is one of the ways the family court system has tried to give up taking responsibility for things. They basically have created child support hearing officers so that administrative official, not a judge, starts to make child support decisions. They are only supposed to hear cases solely directly related to child support, is our understanding. But again, they're not a judge. Don't even know if it's an attorney. Really don't know what the qualifications are. But I know a lot of other people who are dealing with family court issues, DCF and CPS issues. You get stuck with, sometimes they call it an administrative law judge.
ALJ.
They are, really kind of bottom of the barrel as the court, hierarchy goes. But they make decisions that impact people's lives, and there's very little recourse people actually have based on a lot of the decisions that the administrative law judges make.
Yeah. So, Daytona Beach Courthouse on June 17th. I'm assuming my stalkers are going to be there, but you guys know I'll go live at the courthouse as soon as I see them walking in.
And it specifically says, Justin doesn't have to go. He was served notice with this, but this is really just a hearing for Heather in front of the hearing officer.
Yeah, it has absolutely nothing to do with the Serlick family or Laura Stiles. So none of them really should be there or need to be there, but they are aware of it because it says in the letter a copy was sent to Justin Serlick. So we'll see if they show up to terrorize me like they have been doing at the other in-person hearings, but you guys will know as soon as that happens. And then lastly, the most recent docket identification number is 192. And this was something I filed into my case last night because as I am gearing up to move this along and I'm setting up my civil suits where I'm going to be suing everybody. I mean everybody. Judges, attorneys, guardian ad litem's, everyone that had anything to do with my children being kidnapped from me in Illinois, you better believe I'm filing a civil suit. And then everyone involved in Florida, you better believe I'm filing a civil suit for my constitutional rights. So that's going to be a pretty big case. So as I am gearing up for this massive suit between Illinois and Florida, I want to make sure that everything is being documented in my record because they are doing everything they can to keep things from being documented. So the May 2nd hearing, even though I had gotten a transcript from my CART services for the March 25th hearing that was via Zoom with General Magistrate Alexander Alvarez, they absolutely refused to give me a transcript from the May 2nd hearing, meaning there's no documentation that anything was said in that 30-minute hearing. So I filed into my case notice of filing opening statement. Please take notice that Petitioner Heather Louise Bendl hereby files into the court's record the opening statement presented on May 2nd, 2025, before the Honorable Sandra C. Upchurch at Daytona, Florida Courthouse at 9 a.m. Respectfully submitted this 26th day of May, 2025. And then, of course, certificate of service. And now I am also notarizing everything I file into my case to make sure everything is 100% legit. And this is word for word. I actually had this printed, this exact document printed and in front of me at the May 2nd court hearing, where I read this verbatim to her, 2.5 pages. And I'll quickly read it to you guys. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I initiated this case on August 7th, 2023, with the purpose of challenging the validity of an April 27, 2022 order issued in the state of Illinois. That order unlawfully reserved my parental rights to my 4 minor children. At the time of that unlawful order, Illinois no longer had jurisdiction under the Uniform Child Custody Jurisdiction and Enforcement Act, UCCJEA. Specifically, my 3 younger children, Thomas, Bianca, and Charles Serlick, had been residing in Florida continuously since August 13th, 2021. By February 13th, 2022, Florida had exclusive jurisdiction as the children's home state under UCCJEA rules. If you look that up, it literally says wherever the children has resided for 6 full months is their home state. Therefore, the April 22nd, 2022 Illinois order was entered without proper jurisdiction, and I intend to file a writ of habeas corpus in Illinois challenging that order as unconstitutional and in violation of my due process rights. Since August 13th, 2021, I have been denied all contact with my children due to the actions of their father, Justin Serlick, who has obstructed communication and access despite my persistent efforts to reunite with them. As a result, I have lost 5 critical years of parenting. One of my children has already aged out, and another is at risk of doing so without adequate education or support. I fear for their well-being and future. I am a qualified and trusted professional in the state of Florida. I have been employed by Volusia County Schools as a public school teacher. I was selected and onboarded as a guardian ad litem volunteer for Florida's 7th Judicial Circuit, and I have recently undergone interviews with Florida DCF for a child protective investigator role. Each of these roles confirmed my passing of a level 2 background check, affirming I have no criminal history and am fully eligible to work with children. In the state of Florida, if the state of Florida deems me fit to care for and advocate for vulnerable children in public interest, it is unreasonable and unjust that I am still being denied contact with my own biological children. It is well known that there is illegal activity involved in my case behind the scenes with Michael G. Nurheim of Illinois Circuit 19. I have filed the evidence into my docket of the off-channel ex parte communications between him and Circuit 7, which violates UCCJEA. The longer my children are illegally kept from me, the more I will be seeking in monetary damages from all parties involved in keeping my children from me these past 5 years. I fully intend to file a writ of habeas corpus here in Florida as well, regarding what Florida Circuit 7 is doing to my children and I. I will be filing writs for my children as well. Since I saw you last January 8th, 2025, I have received a police report that shows my son Thomas Serlick attempted suicide in Justin Serlick's care in Daytona. Justin Serlick concealed this fact from this court and myself. My children left me 3 separate voicemails on February 19th, 2025 that make it clear they want to see and speak to me. These voicemails can be conveyed as a cry for help from them. These voicemails are still on my phone, and I would like you to listen to them right now in court. Accordingly, I respectfully request that the court vacate the General Magistrate's recommendation, recognize the lack of jurisdiction in Illinois at the time of the April 2022 order immediate reunification measures, including supervised or neutral police station exchange with Justin Serlick, and acknowledge the long-term ongoing harm being done to my children by this prolonged and unnecessary separation. This is not only a legal matter, but a human one. My civil, constitutional, and parental rights are being denied. I am their mother, I am not a threat, and I am not going away. My children deserve their mother in their lives, and I respectfully request this court to act in their best interests today. Thank you. So I read that. No emotional response from my ex-husband, the father of my children sitting next to me. No response whatsoever from the judge. She didn't say anything. Mary, Ira, Serlick sat in the corner with Laura Stiles, and they all sat. They were chit-chatting a little behind me, but I couldn't hear any of their junk. So now, since they don't give me the proper means to record what's happening and being said in these hearings, from now on, I'm going to start doing this. And that's
something that we've seen is just par for the course in family court across the country. And the reality is, it is one of the greatest injustices that there is in the family court system that court reporters and court recording is not required, mandated, or standardized. In most cases, here in Circuit 7 in Volusia County, if Heather wants to have an official transcript, she has to contact a third-party court reporting company and pay a private company to come in, set up in her hearing to do a recording and transcript, or when we did contact some of these third-party recording companies, they said, oh, all the courtrooms have a digital recording system. We can just pull the digital files later on and give you the transcript, and make the transcript. Heather,
they're not actually recording
what
like they're
happens
supposed
in
to.
your courtroom? Does Judge Upchurch do have a digital recording? No. In fact, in the last
courtroom is equipped with it.
Oh, it's got all the equipment. It's got the web cameras. It's got the projectors, the screens. Everything's there.
She's refusing to use it, violating my rights.
Because
they know what they're doing to me is illegal.
In the last hearing notice, it actually specifically said, we will not be recording this. If you want a record of this, you have to provide your own court reporter.
And it's a whole racketeering scheme. And because the third-party court reporters know that family courts are not recording, so they then take advantage of these victims of this family court corruption. And so it costs $1,000. Which I don't have.
Even with the CART services, which is an ADA accommodation that Heather gets because of her hearing disability, that's literally, the person is literally sitting there doing a transcript. This is a court reporter that does this, yet they refuse to provide her a transcript. So unless, it's really unbelievable what they're expecting Heather to do. They're expecting her to hear and read everything that's going on at the same time as representing herself to try to defend herself.
Knowing that I'm 100% deaf in my right ear because I was born that way and I am legally disabled.
They don't even allow Heather to get the transcript of that service for Heather to review and verify.
But I know that I can get it from the software from Esquire Services because I actually, the moment the March 25th hearing with General Magistrate ended, I pulled the transcript from the software. Because,
so if there's a Zoom hearing,
right? If there's a Zoom hearing, I can absolutely pull it. But when we go in person, and Upchurch has already told me she doesn't do Zooms at all. She's always going to require it to be in person because then she can walk all over my constitutional rights and not record anything because she knows what she's doing is highly illegal. Yeah. So yeah, it's a racketeering scheme. Everybody makes money off of us victims.
By not having the official transcripts and the official recording, there's no evidence when the judges mess up and do things wrong or illegally.
And that's why as victims across the nation need to start speaking up and advocating
mandatory court reporting in all
we
court
need to make it a
hearings.
federal law. All of the movements that are happening across this country right now and everything that I'm involved with, one of the things that absolutely needs to change is if we are going to keep, and I want to do an episode just on family court reform because I've got a lot of ideas. A lot of us in the movements, Phoenix Kai Rising with Children's Court, she's making big changes in Texas. Ideally, we want to copycat that in all of the states. But we definitely want to form a group that all together collectively goes to Congress and says, this needs to change, this needs to change, and this needs to change about family courts. So it requires all of us as a nation to use our voice. Okay. So we need to get a little bit more courage to speak up and get involved with the protests that's happening, et cetera.
So now what's happened in your appellate court?
Yeah, so now we're going to shift to Florida District 5 appellant case. So I have two concurrent cases going. One is 1442, and so that one I specifically want to be separate, and that is the motion for disqualification of Judge Upchurch. Now, I also learned that there's something else I can file, a different writ, not the habeas corpus, but a different writ that I can file from someone else that I've been working with here in Florida Circuit 7. She just filed her writ, and now I'm going to be filing mine next. But as for right now, I have 2 cases. This is all just on my main appellant case, which is everything else that doesn't have to do with their disqualification. So this is my notice of appeal for the motion to stay child support, which I am super excited because something is actually happening with that one. So I filed the motion to stay child support. Upchurch immediately denied it, like expected. I immediately turned around and filed this notice of appeal to get it right into District 5 Appellant Court. And within a week, let's see, when did I file this? So this was May 20th, 3 days. Within 3 days, I get a order from District 5. Why don't you go ahead and read that for them?
May 23rd, by order of the court, upon consideration of the notice of appeal filed May 20th, 2025, which is seeking review of the order denying a motion to stay, should properly proceed as a motion for review herein. The parties are advised that no new appeal will be established. It is ordered that appellant shall, within 10 days of the date hereof, file an amended motion for review. Yep. And then it's got the court stamps.
Yep. So this was May 23rd. I had 10 days to file that amended motion for review. Well, I already did. It's right there. I filed it May 26th. I e-filed it. I am not going to talk about this amended motion for review of order denying motion to stay.
Until we hear something back from the
court. Right. So it is filed. It is in District 5 Appellant Court. It's sitting there pending right now, but the other party has not received their copy of it yet. So for the purpose of this video, we're not going to discuss this any further. I will discuss it in the next.
The only thing we can really say about it is the difference between the motion for appeal and the motion for review is that the motion for review will allow the court to actually review something before the full appeal procedure.
Right.
So it's like they can review it quicker is basically what it is.
So, I'm really enjoying appellant court because it's very streamlined. So there's no BS. There's no screwing
it's
around.
It's strictly procedural.
Yeah.
So
I'm excited for this. So that is it between Florida Circuit 7 and Appellant Court. You guys are caught up. So really all I have left to talk about is to just explain my podcast a little bit more. So Justice for the Serlick Children podcast, like I said, it's on everything you can think of. I subscribed to Podbean and I signed up for every single podcast platform I could, and it's sending out the feed to it. So basically how I'm doing this, because I have friends and other people.
There it is on Spotify.
Yeah. Get this over there. Spotify. Super awesome. So I like to do the Facebook Lives because it pulls in a bunch of my friends from Chicagoland. They can, good to see you too, they can pull into my live on Facebook, get involved, catch up with what I'm doing down here in Florida. Because my whole life prior to 2022 was Lake County, Illinois. So a lot of my friends, my close friends, are up in Chicagoland and Wisconsin. So doing the Facebook Live is great to be able to pull in those Chicagoland friends and interact with them. And then after I end this, what I do is I download the video from Facebook, upload it to YouTube, and then connect my YouTube to the Podbean, and then it sends it out to all the podcast platforms. So it's really cool. So Justice for the Serlick Children podcast is live now. All of my previous weekly updates on YouTube are now on the podcast as episodes. So this one right here is going to be episode 11. So obviously in the podcast, you don't have access to the links to review my documentation, but that will always be available on the YouTube and these Facebook posts. So, other than that, you guys are pretty much caught up.
You can talk just briefly, because we still have a couple minutes, about the other podcast you're going to be launching.
So the other podcast, because Justice for the Serlick Children obviously has my children's name in it. It's Justice for Them. It's dedicated to the 4 of them. So that is dedicated solely to my storyline, Pete and I's experiences, to share with not only other victims of this, but hopefully also so that my children can listen to this someday and know the actual truth, because they are absolutely being alienated by the Serlick family. Extreme parental alienation. My daughter Bianca right here in 2021 told me that Grandma Mary told us that you gave us up for adoption in Illinois, and that's why Dad took us.
Couldn't be further from the truth.
Not true at all. So my children are being lied to, and this is my way of setting the record straight for my own children. My other podcast is going to be named Disrupt the Corrupt. And that is going to be specifically, like Marianne Petrie, Slam the Gavel. I'm kind of taking ideas that what she does with her podcast. She's my mentor, and I'm going to go ahead and start interviewing other people to get other people's stories out. So I'm going to have 2 separate podcasts. And
this is something we've come across. There's so many people who have been impacted by issues negatively with the family court system, but some of them are either too afraid to tell their story, or they don't even know where to begin telling their story. So as Heather has, built up her own voice in this process, we are going to be able to link up with some of these other people who have their own stories to tell, and we will help them tell their story, which helps, spread the word. One of the big things, before I met Heather, I had no dealings with family court. I had no idea some of the stuff that goes on. I was naive, like 99% of the population is. Anybody who's never dealt with family court is completely naive,
or are just wealthy and don't see the
some of the stuff that goes on.
Things.
And then having met Heather and seen what's happened in her case, and now that we're getting connected with other folks and seeing Heather's case is not unique. The same exact thing is happening all across the country in all different jurisdictions because of the way the family court system in this country is allowed to run with no regulation. So we're going to be using that podcast to help spread the word and help other people to get their stories out. Because
we're stronger in numbers.
Once the story's out on the internet, one of 2 things is going to happen. Other people either sort of verify that it's true and the story is there permanently, or people can step in and say, oh no, that's actually not real, not true, here's the proof, and then it gets self-corrected. So 99% of the people telling the stories, the reality is the people who are telling the truth are the ones that are going to take the time to do it.
And I'm going a step further by actually providing the documents that I'm talking about through a Google Drive link, so that you guys can see exactly what I'm talking about as soon as I upload the video, so and you can take a look at it and compare notes to maybe your own case. Maybe there's similarities, and you can kind of take a look at what I am filing and maybe base it off of that. That's why I created this nonprofit dedicated to my children, is to help others. So, that's what I want to do. So that podcast will be coming soon, and I have a whole list of people that want to be guests, and we're going to get going with that, I'd say by the end of June. So definitely check out my podcast and get caught up if you haven't seen my previous ones. It does start off pretty heavy. My very first episode was my very first time I turned this Facebook Live on and just poured my heart out to the whole world on a Facebook Live, because I was just terrorized by 2 Volusia County Sheriff's officers that were sent by Mary Serlick and Laura Stiles to harass me.
Yeah, and you can watch or listen to all of the podcast episodes, and you'll understand exactly what Heather means by they were sent by Heather's ex-mother-in-law and her best friend.
They literally triggered these sheriffs to show up at my house. They wanted them to show up at my church on Easter weekend, and they wanted to have me arrested there. I'm guessing the Volusia Sheriff's Office wasn't okay with that, because I don't know of many people that would be, that are true Christians. But yeah, so The louder we get, guys, the harder it's going to be for all of this corruption to continue. We have to keep using our voice. We have to dig deep down inside of ourselves to find the courage to use our voice. And we need to just keep connecting with others across the nation and make some real changes in this country. The time is now.
And with
On that, I'm going to bid you adieu, and we'll see you next week. Have a great night, everyone.
Take care. Thanks for listening.
Bye.